Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Daniel Kelsall and Morgan Huxley? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoy this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Morgan Huxley was born on June 5, 1982, and raised in Sydney, Australia. His parents separated when he was in elementary school. Morgan was described as energetic, positive, and fun-loving. He had a particular interest in water activities. In 2009, he started a business called Huxley Marine. He constructed boat sheds, ramps, and jetties in the Sydney area. Morgan was considered attractive and active romantically. Before moving to the timeline of the crime, let's hear a word from today's sponsor, Factor. My holidays are already jam-packed. Luckily, Factor's fresh, never-frozen meals make it easy to fuel up fast when I'm on the go. And I save time with meals delivered ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. Factor now offers 34 meals per week and over 36 add-on options like smoothies, juices, snacks, and more to keep me going no matter what I have going on. Factor is more affordable than dining in. Put the money you save toward holiday fun. And thanks to Factor's commitment to ingredients with integrity, you can enjoy flavorful, chef-crafted meals guilt-free. Factor's no preparation, no mess meals save me time on planning and cleanup and allow me to fully enjoy the holidays. After a long day of making videos, Factor is my go-to solution for dinner. Head to go.factor75.com/drgrande60 and use code drgrande60 to get 60% off your first Factor box. That's 60% off your first Factor box. Go.factor75.com/drgrande60, code drgrande60. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On September 7, 2013, 31-year-old Morgan Huxley attended an engagement party for one of his friends. Morgan shared a taxi to his home in Neutral Bay. This is about 10 minutes north of the Sydney Opera House. Morgan wanted to keep the party going, but his friends were not interested. After midnight, now on September 8, Morgan walked alone to a bar at the Oaks Hotel. He was not wearing any shoes. A 20-year-old dishwasher named Daniel Jack Kelsall had just finished his shift at a cooking school across the street from the Oaks Hotel. Daniel was born in New Zealand. He was adopted at birth by an upper-middle-class family. At the age of 18, he moved to Sydney, Australia. Daniel had seen Morgan and developed an interest in him. It's not clear if Daniel had ever seen Morgan before this. Daniel was carrying a bag containing a jacket, a chef's apron, Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading cards, and a large kitchen knife. He waited on the street for Morgan to finish drinking at the bar. When Morgan exited the bar at about 1:28 a.m., Daniel followed him as Morgan walked on Military Road. Morgan made his way to his 2-story townhouse apartment on Watson Street, just a few minutes from the hotel. As Morgan entered his apartment, Daniel waited outside. Morgan turned on a light and put on a pair of running shoes, like perhaps he was thinking about going out again. He walked upstairs to his bedroom and opened a window. Morgan fell asleep on his bed without first removing his clothing. Morgan had a 24-year-old roommate named Jean Redmond. She closed her bedroom door after Morgan opened the window because it created a draft. Jean's boyfriend was planning on spending the night at the apartment, but Jean wasn't worried about staying up for him because he had his own key. Jean went to sleep, but was awakened 15 minutes later after hearing someone knock 2 times on the front door. She didn't think much of it and went back to sleep. Morgan did not respond to the knocks at the door. The person knocking was Daniel Kelsall. It's not clear if the front door was left unlocked or if it wasn't closed properly, but either way, Daniel was able to open it and enter the apartment. He pulled out his knife and walked up the stairs. On the second floor, there was a bathroom on the right and 2 bedrooms on the left. Daniel walked by the door of the first bedroom. It was closed. This was Jean's bedroom. The second bedroom door was ajar. This was Morgan's. Daniel pushed Morgan's door open using his left hand and found Morgan face down on the bed. Daniel climbed on the bed and proceeded to pull down Morgan's shorts. Daniel touched Morgan inappropriately, which caused Morgan to wake up. Daniel then stabbed Morgan 28 times in his neck and back. Part of the knife broke off in Morgan's skull. Daniel grabbed Morgan's phone, put the knife under his shirt, and left the apartment, closing the front door behind him. Daniel walked to his parents' residence, which was about 15 minutes away. At some point, Daniel was able to get rid of the knife, his bloody clothing, and Morgan's phone. Daniel accidentally pushed a button on his own phone and called a friend of his. This was at 2:29 a.m. Realizing his mistake, he ended the call before it rang on the other end. Moving back to Morgan's situation, after the attack, Morgan managed to move off the bed, but he lost consciousness in the doorway. His roommate, Jean, heard muffled noises and investigated. After finding Morgan, she screamed his name, shook his shoulder, then went back to get her cell phone. Jean called the wrong number for emergency services in Australia. Instead of 000, she dialed 999, which is the United Kingdom emergency services number. Jean was from Ireland. She was eventually able to connect with emergency services, and she started CPR. Paramedics arrived at 3:05 a.m. Morgan was alive, but in cardiac arrest. He died after being transported to a nearby hospital. The police investigated the murder and found that Morgan had a few potential enemies, but there was no evidence that any of those people were involved in his death. The police examined surveillance video in the area surrounding the Oaks Hotel and Morgan's residence. They noticed that he had been followed by a man who would later be identified as Daniel Kelsall. He could be seen standing outside the hotel, looking through the glass at Morgan drinking. After Morgan exited the hotel, Daniel was walking quickly behind him, even running at certain points. The police brought Daniel in for questioning. They described his mannerisms as strange, odd, and calm. Daniel said that he first encountered Morgan at a convenience store. Morgan asked him if he wanted to use the ATM, and Daniel said no. Daniel claimed that the video surveillance simply captured him walking home. He wasn't actually following Morgan. When asked why he did not take a direct route home, Daniel said he was going back to the cooking school to make sure that he had turned off the lights. When he was asked why he was running at certain times, he said his mother told him to jog when he was cold. Daniel refused to supply the police with a DNA sample. Daniel called the police 2 days after being interviewed. He told them that he had not revealed the entire truth. He had, in fact, spoken to Morgan on the night Morgan was murdered. According to Daniel, he encountered Morgan on the median strip on Military Road and noticed that Morgan looked depressed. Daniel said to him, "Can I cheer you up?" In response, Morgan invited Daniel back to his apartment, and they had consensual sex. This explains why Daniel's DNA and fingerprints would be found at the scene. Daniel decided to leave after Morgan fell asleep. As he was walking out the door, he encountered a woman with blonde hair arriving at the apartment. He assumed that this mystery woman killed Morgan because she figured out that Daniel had sex with Morgan. Daniel was arrested, but not charged at this time. The police would eventually collect quite a bit of evidence against Daniel. A few examples. There was a knife missing from the cooking school where he worked. Morgan's blood was found on Daniel's shoulder bag, which Daniel had taken to the police station when he was interviewed. Daniel's DNA was on Morgan's genitals, and Daniel's fingerprint was on Morgan's bedroom door. On October 8, 2013, Daniel was arrested again, and this time he was charged with murder. As the police were processing him, Daniel said, "Pardon the pun, but you could cut the air in here with a knife." I think Daniel was just preparing for his many appearances at prison comedy night. It's a tougher crowd in prison. The comedic references of killing and dying are sometimes applied literally. Daniel pleaded not guilty. His trial was in March of 2015. He testified on his own behalf. He said that Morgan invited him to the apartment and they had consensual sex. At this point, his story deviated from what he told the police. He now said that as they were having sex, someone hit him on the head and he realized that there was a third person in the room. This person was fighting with Morgan. Daniel stood up and ran out of the room. The mystery killer story did not convince the jury. Daniel was found guilty of murder and indecent assault. He was sentenced to 40 years in prison. He is eligible for release after 30 years, which will be in 2044 when he is 51 years old. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. Daniel had no criminal record and no history of violence. He was employed and appeared to function reasonably well. His coworkers were stunned when he was being investigated for murder. They described him as never having any anger and being gentle. His supervisor asked him if he did it. He denied involvement, but said if he did do it, there is no way the police would catch him. Item number 2, Daniel warned treatment professionals about having homicidal thoughts. About a year and a half before the murder, he told his physician that he had intrusive thoughts about killing somebody with a knife on his way home at night. A month later, he told a mental health professional that he had thought of killing someone for the thrill of it. He went on to say that his target would probably be selected at random and he would kill the person with a knife. After committing murder, he could hide the body. He would only go to jail if he wanted to get caught. It's not clear what, if anything, was done by the treatment professionals after hearing Daniel's thoughts. Item number 3, if Daniel had not been arrested, it seems likely he would have transformed into a serial killer. 2 months before the murder, Daniel stopped a man who was smoking outside of an apartment. He jumped out of the bushes, but the man chased him away. A week after murdering Morgan, Daniel followed a man almost to the man's front door. The man told him to blank off, which ended the confrontation. Daniel appeared to have an interest in death. He was fascinated with knives and had autopsy photographs on his laptop computer. Item number 4, Daniel's mental health history included bipolar disorder and autism spectrum disorder. A mental health professional who interviewed him after he was arrested made a few observations. She believed that he was not psychotic. He was intelligent, articulate, and cold. His face remained blank even when he used words traditionally associated with emotions. He tried to convince the clinician that he had autism spectrum disorder, but his presentation didn't seem to match the symptoms of that disorder. For example, he made good eye contact. He also inconsistently manifested the symptoms he claimed to have. For example, he claimed to have a compulsion where he would tap on his eyeglasses, yet he did not do that consistently when he was being interviewed. Item number 5, what could be going on with Daniel's personality? This is just a theory, my opinion. Daniel appears to have a number of narcissistic and psychopathic characteristics. With narcissism, he is self-centered, has a sense of entitlement, and believes that he is special. Daniel appeared to enjoy the attention he received at trial and has repeatedly represented himself as intellectually superior. As far as psychopathy, he appears to have several traits from Factor 1 psychopathy, like deceptive behavior, superficial charm, a lack of remorse, shallow affect, being manipulative, failing to accept responsibility, and having a lack of empathy. His deficit in empathy appears to be restricted to the affective side. He cannot feel what other people are feeling, but he does appear to understand that emotions are important to people. Therefore, he does have cognitive empathy. He realizes that emotions exist and that they influence how people behave and how people respond to him. He can cognitively understand what an emotion is, but again, he just cannot feel it. This is common for people with Factor 1 psychopathy and explains why Daniel uses words associated with feelings. There is the sense with Daniel that his psychopathy is so pronounced that he is hopeless. People are afraid that he will commit murder after being released from prison. The mental health clinician who assessed him after he was arrested indicated that she believed he would kill again and implied that he was the most frightening individual she had ever assessed. Daniel's parents paint a different image. They describe Daniel as loving, caring, considerate, generous, respectful, and hardworking. They believe that mental health clinicians failed Daniel. There is no way to know what will happen in the future. Psychopathy typically does not change very much over the years, but if Daniel spends 40 years in prison, perhaps he will see the value of living a murder-free existence. So maybe his personality won't change, but he'll decide to follow the rules because he feels like he can better accomplish his goals by doing that. Now moving to my final thoughts. I think one of the elements that is so frightening about this case is that Morgan Huxley was murdered by a complete stranger who was brazen, sadistic, and appeared to be harmless. Some people say that Daniel killed without warning, but he did provide a warning to mental health clinicians. They either failed to act or failed to prevent him from killing. The lesson learned in this case would be this: when a client repeatedly tells a mental health clinician that he has intrusive thoughts about committing a random murder, it is time to take action. Those are my thoughts in the case of Daniel Kelsall and Morgan Huxley. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.